It's the only profession where like effort can be truly tracked through metrics. Better or for worse, sales is very metric driven. There's a lot of art to it.
This week on Merchants of Change, we've got Matt Barr. Matt played D1 basketball for the Bentley University Falcons before starting his sales career as an SDR with Acquia out of Boston. Today, he is the VP of Sales and Client Success at Breezeway, a leading property operations and services platform. Here he is, Matt Barr.
I'm J.R. Butler, co-founder and CEO of The Shift Group, and you're listening to Merchants of Change. This is a podcast about transferring the skills and behaviors we acquire as athletes and military veterans into becoming a professional salesperson. Each week, we'll introduce you to a top performer who will help us understand how they became professional merchants of change.
What's up, kid? How we doing? We got Matt Barr today. Matt, how are you?
JR, what's happening, man? Appreciate you having me.
No, man. Thanks for coming on. I'm great to have you. Perfect guest for our audience. So our audience is mostly new salespeople and a lot of people considering a career shift into sales. And then we find that we also get a lot of sales leaders that listen to the podcast. So I think we got some content and some topics to cover for all three of those types of people. And the way we like to flow, Matt, we start with your sports background, get into your transition, and then hit some of the lessons learned in your career. Sound like a good plan?
Fantastic. I love it. Let's get into it.
I love it. I think you might be our first Bentley Falcon, so I'm excited.
Nice.
So let's start very broadly, Matt. You're a basketball guy. What are some of your favorite memories of your basketball career?
Yeah, I think no surprise here, JR. I think you might have heard this once or twice before, but I think thinking about things you really, really miss, it's got to be the locker room. I think the best thing you can do in life is really just challenge or take on a challenging goal with a group of people you deeply care about. And when those people have similar values and they approach their job or they approach the team with the same amount of energy and focus as you do, like it really lends itself to incredible experiences and amazing friendships. And when you're doing that with your best friends, it gets even better. So it's got to be my teammates in the locker room. It's the long bus rides. It's the morning lifts. I never thought I'd miss the grueling preseason that leads up to the season. Definitely missed the 2 weeks postseason when you're kind of winding down and sharing memories. And I think outside of that, it's like you miss the physical component of it as well. As salespeople, we're definitely competing mentally, and as business leaders, we're competing mentally, but you miss the physical piece that goes along with that. But it's the locker room, it's my teammates and the memories we shared for sure.
Absolutely, definitely the most common answer we get for sure, and I think it's true, man. And it's also, by the way, one of the reasons I think sales is a good career for athletes, because sales is a team sport again. So, how do you think, looking back at like Bentley and just so the audience knows, Matt and I share an alma mater. I didn't go to Bentley. My wife got her MBA there, but I played at a school before Holy Cross called Cushing, and Matt played basketball at Cushing as well. So we got a little Penguin connection going on.
Purple
I know
Penguins.
we get some Penguin listeners, but how do you think, when you look back specifically at Bentley, how do you think your teammates would describe you from those days?
Yeah, good question. I think they would describe someone who was tough, who was hard-nosed, who put the team first, who was, an absolute competitor. Like to think I was the first one on the floor after a loose ball. It's funny, after every game, coaches would watch film and they would go through, I don't know how long it took them, but they would go through every single play and look at every single player. And they would look for positives and they would look for negatives on each play, and they would put in a plus. You'd get a plus or a minus on each play. So if you missed a box out, or you weren't in the right position defensively, or you didn't make the next pass, you'd get a minus. And we'd walk in the locker room the next day. I mean, think about that. Talk about accountability. But we'd walk in the locker room the next day after a game, and there would be a huge sheet on the wall, and it would say, J.R. Butler, X number of pluses, X number of minuses. And I really prided myself on having 0 minuses and having the best ratio on the team. And you get pluses for all the little stuff. So that's what I pride myself on. I think that's what my teammates would think about when I come to mind. Because I was definitely not stuffing the stat sheet. That's for sure.
That is amazing. I love that. That was at Bentley they did that?
That was at Bentley, yep.
That is incredible, dude.
Yep.
That is incredible. Who was the coach there? Was that not Coach Lawson? Was he there still, or was
Jay Lawson? He's still there.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
unbelievable. Old school demeanor. It's all about discipline, toughness, and he's he embodies accountability. So
I love that. That's what a
little nerve-wracking walking into the locker room the day after the game.
Yeah. I was gonna say I wouldn't want to see my minus sheet. Like in hockey, it's just 1 minus, and you can kind of hide and you just keep throw it off the glass and get out. I'd have a lot of minuses though. You guys should have done plus minuses for the post-win parties too, like pluses and minuses. So Bentley is, first off, an unbelievable school, and it's very different than my liberal arts experience in that it is a business school. Like at the end of the day, right? Like it's very focused. So were you thinking about sales the entire time you were there? Did it come up at some point? Were there other careers that you explored? Like how did that whole, towards the end of your basketball career, how did that whole transition kind of develop?
Yeah, I think, I'd taken a couple sales classes at Bentley. It was not yet a major at the time. I ended up majoring in marketing, but, those were definitely my favorite classes. I had some older teammates in software sales. They were starting to make some real money. They had communicated, they thought I might be okay at it. But I was so ready to start cold calling, JR, that I skipped getting right into software sales. I went to Rwanda, Africa for a year right after college with a nonprofit in a remote village, and just kind of using basketball as a vehicle to give women and children access to healthcare and health education. And that was incredible and amazing experience. I think the whole time I knew I would, the natural transition from that is, software sales, but no, I think the whole time I knew I would end up there because because of some of the classes I took at Bentley, but more so from seeing older teammates who had gone on to get into SaaS sales and start to see some real success and try and follow their path.
Yeah, I'm so jealous that you even had the option to take a sales class at Bentley. Now that you're in it now, are there things you look back on and you're like, I can't believe they were already teaching this, or are there some things you look back on and you're like, that's not really relevant? It was
relevant.
Yeah.
I think they focused it on entry level sales as well, which was good. So they talked about, they talked about email messaging and effective cold emailing and some cold calling. But again, I think until you're in it, and at that time, being an athlete in college, you're still really focused on basketball, and you're not thinking about how am I going to use this in my SaaS sales career moving forward. So I think I had to probably relearn everything that was talked about in that class. But I'm grateful that they had classes at that time, and it's awesome now that you're seeing sales majors across a lot of these universities.
I know. There's a guy at Bentley named Jim Pouliopoulos. Pooley. I don't know if he was there when you were there, but he is a legend.
Yep, that was he was one of the professors.
Yeah, he's awesome. I judge their sales major. They do a sales competition, and we judge it every year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's really
cool.
I'm
sure it's come a long way. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. What do you first off, amazing experience going to Rwanda. You were building basketball courts there, right?
Yep. So building cool. Basketball and coaching, and then using it to teach some health education. And
that's very cool. That's cool. And then you get back here, you get an SDR job. Talk to me about it. What do you remember about that first sales job?
Yeah, so I landed a job at Acquia, enterprise level SaaS company in Boston, decent sized SDR team. I think I had 15 to 20 on my team, and it was awesome. I mean, it was my first and last in-person year of my career. So we had the bullpen that I definitely miss and wish we could recreate at Breezeway a little bit, but I hit the ground running. I worked in the Fed space. I had two awesome AEs that I worked with that became mentors for me. A great director of that space that became mentors to me. But I put my all into it, and it was a fantastic experience. And I think about 12 months in, there was a really strong path to becoming an account executive, but I felt like something was missing. And I actually started thinking about sports again. So I left Acquia, and I started a sports marketing company that I was hoping to turn into like a sports management company.
Oh, wow.
With a friend of mine. And we had a couple friends in the NBA, and we're like, all right, maybe we can help them build a brand, off the court, which has become, super important, especially for some guys with short tenures, and goes hand in hand with all the stuff that you guys are doing. But poured myself into that for a couple months, had no idea what the hell I was doing. And I got on the phone with a mentor of mine. He was the chief sales officer at Acquia and went on to be a president at a company called Project 44. But we were chatting. He's like, Matt, my passion, your passions are sports. My passions are racing. He does a lot of like car racing. He's like, my passions are racing, traveling, spending time with my family. At this time, he was at the supply chain management company. He's like, listen, I don't care about supply chain management. I have created passions around building process, around building high performing teams, or around developing relationships, around challenging and helping young sellers develop personally and professionally, and helping clients uncover inefficiencies. And this was a huge change for me, because he was like, finding a passion in those things and pouring myself into those things has allowed me to have financial freedom and own a motorsports company and travel all over the world and give my family, incredible life. So it really hit me, and I was like, all right, I'm getting back into SaaS sales. I'm going to give this another go. And I really enjoyed my time at Acquia. I just felt like something was missing. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get back into SaaS, but I'm going to find a startup where I can really feel like I'm helping to build something. And that's when I found Breezeway, because I loved all the aspects of SaaS at Acquia. I just felt like there was a piece missing. But I'm super grateful for that conversation. And as I've grown at Breezeway, do I love vacation rental operations? I think I probably do a little bit, because I've spent so much damn time with this company. But my passions are building teams, building process, building structure, seeing people develop, seeing myself develop, and seeing a company see success. So, grateful for that conversation and kind of how it's pivoted my career.
I love it, dude. I say it all the time. You don't follow your passion, you work for your passion.
Yeah.
And it comes by, it's like people get confused between purpose and passion, right? Like your purpose, right? You love sport and you want financial freedom. And you want, I don't know if you're a golfer. I'm a golfer. I want to golf a lot. Like that's what I want to do. And I want I want to be present in my kid's life. I want to coach his teams. So for me, that's my purpose. In order to achieve that purpose, I've developed a passion about a lot of the same stuff you're talking about: building great teams, teaching young potential salespeople how to sell and build a career. And I figured out a way to make money doing that. You figured out a way to make money building teams and instituting process and systems. And that's going to help me get my purpose, but that's not what my job is. Like, and you get passionate, you get more and more passionate, like you said, as you get better at stuff, like anything else. So, dude, that is so good. You owe that guy a huge favor for explaining that to you.
Oh, 100%. We're still very close today. I owe him a lot more than that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, what are some of the boxes that got checked going to a smaller company that you didn't find at a bigger company?
Yeah, I mean, when I joined Breezeway, it was a bit of a wild west. So I really got to dig in and be use some of my resourcefulness to understand how do you run a successful sales business at a SaaS company with 10 people, and how do you grow that from 10 people to 20 people while continuing to improve efficiency and build out a repeatable, scalable process. And then how do you pour gasoline on that? And there wasn't really anyone at the company that was taking that on. I came in as an individual contributor, but there was so much green field in front of me that it was like incredibly lucky to join that position and work for an incredible CEO with a amazing product that meets like a business critical need. But I had to take advantage of that green field in front of me and build out a scalable process. And I think at smaller companies, you can really feel the impact of the work that you're doing a lot easier than you can at bigger companies.
I love it. That's awesome. And that's a good transition into this next question, because this is part of like what we're dealing with a lot with athletes and veterans that come through our program. They want to know, they come and they're interested, right? Interested in sales. And I'm sure you get similar calls from like Falcons.
Yeah.
When a senior from Bentley calls you and they say, "Hey, Matt, I saw that you're a VP of sales, and that you play basketball at Bentley. I'm thinking about getting into sales." What's that conversation? What is, and there's a second part to this, but let's start there. What does the conversation look like with a kid like that is just showing this like, potential intent of like moving into sales? How do you talk to that person?
Yeah, great question. And I've had a few of these conversations. And if it's a Bentley basketball player, whether a male or a female, I know both of those coaches very, very well. So I know that they were coached hard. So I want to dig into that first. I want to get a better understanding of, how they feel about those experiences. What lessons did they learn from coach? What lessons did they learn from being a Bentley basketball player? And if they have, a deep appreciation for that coaching and an appreciation for being yelled at in the film room, an appreciation for what they've learned, then like that's a great sign that they appreciate development and tough feedback, and that's going to do them wonders in the sales world. I think the second question that I ask is what drives them, and I don't think there's a right answer to this, but I think there needs to be an answer. Right? Some people are driven financially. Some people are driven by other things. Whatever it is, like you're going to need some conviction in sales to show up every day, especially as an SDR, and get hung up on. So I'm looking for some drive, and then it usually leads to, just talking about SaaS and my experience. And I like to talk through some of the pros that I've experienced, like being able to take a athletic competitive nature and really use that as a profession, and all the relationships that you can build with clients and with colleagues. And, you can end up making a lot of money doing this stuff, and you see people get really excited. And I think you'll like this piece of like, then I throw on all the shit that's really hard about being a SaaS professional. And I want to see their reaction after that. So, if you want to be great, it's not going to be 40 hours a week. Right. As an SDR, I actually interviewed an SDR today, and I'm like, cold calling is hard. You're going to be hung up on. And I'm waiting to see that person. If they're really excited after the good stuff, and then even more excited after the second piece, I think those are the people that, I'm going to make some introductions, and I'm going to push them to follow this path, because it shows that they want to be challenged, and they're someone that's willing to get into the trenches.
So good, dude. And that's how our process works, is like, you get them inspired. Hey, you in 3 to 5 years, you can make $150,000 to $200,000. There's no other profession in the world you can do that. You build your own schedule. There's a lot of entertaining. You get to, meet new people. You get to learn what makes them tick. You get to help them solve problems, right? And everybody's like, oh, this sounds awesome. And then it's like, oh, by the way, your first year, you're going to make $100 a day minimum. You're going to get hung up on 9 out of 10 times. You're going to get kicked in the teeth. You're going to have to learn all this new shit. And it's going to be like drinking from a fire hose. And by the way, you have to put every activity into a CRM. And it's like, oh, by the thing I always say to them, and I remind my team of this too, when they bitch about like CRM, I'm like, that's what the money's for. Like, yes, there are a lot of fun parts to this, but you get paid for the hard parts. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone would do it if it was all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah. It's the only profession where like effort can be truly tracked through metrics. Better or for worse, sales is very metric driven. There's a lot of art to it. There's, you got to make sure you're looking at anecdotal feedback. But end of the day, the amount of effort that's being put in usually can be seen in a dashboard, which is
totally,
it can be tough.
So every profession has its controllables. Sales is the only profession that the controllables are black and white. You either did them or you did not. Yeah. So if you're not in the green on your controllables, you have no right to complain or to be entitled to anything else. Like I said, I think that's another reason why we have had so much success with athletes, because they get
Absolutely.
that part. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So you got this kid, he's bought in, fired about the good stuff, fired up. He's okay with the bad stuff. And he's like, all right, I'm talking to like a few companies, Matt. What's your advice to this person in terms of like characteristics and like boxes to check for the first company? Because we get these kids, they get multiple offers, and they're talking about, $5K here or whatever, or this is in the office, this is remote, I'd like to be. What are the things at the core that really matter for your first job, your first company?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this relatively short, because I think I have a lot of them. But to your point, I don't think the 5K is definitely not one of them. When you talk about getting to 150, 200 plus, and even more than that after 5+ years, that's a drop in the water. When prioritizing culture, I think the three that I would focus on are culture and leadership, and then probably growth third. And there are a lot of ways to tease this out in the interview process. And I think, questions that you can ask future teammates, how much coaching do you receive on a daily basis? Talk to me how you've developed your skills in the 6 months that you've been an SDR at this company that I'm thinking about joining. And I think the same thing goes for when you're talking to hiring managers, right? Like, talk me through how you approach team development. Do you have any examples of things you're working on with individual team members today? And, if that manager can't respond pretty quickly and say, with SDR number one, we're working on connect to booked rate, and, we're really focusing on overcoming objections, and, he or she has a great opener, tone is good, but when they hear an objection, they give up. And like we're doing role play in the second half of one-on-ones, and then we have a weekly enablement session. If a manager can't answer with something similar to that pretty quickly, then you're probably not going to get the amount of coaching that you probably require at that stage of your career. And I think a lot of people might shy away from it. We're like, okay, like not a ton of coaching, that's okay, but like being vulnerable at the beginning of your career and having a leader that you really look up to and care about, like, will play major dividends down the road. And I think you can get that at small companies. I think, we do an okay job at it at 80 people. I wasn't very good at it when we were 15 people. But I've also seen companies that have 2,000 people that look like they have a lot of structure, and it's a lot of structure, but it's not coaching. So it's finding that individual that's really going to dig in with you, I think is the most impactful piece. And then from a growth perspective, I think you got to be a little bit careful with how you ask about growth in the interview process. I'll explain what I mean, but like asking the question of, do you have an example of an SDR that came in and did, everything you asked them to and got promoted to the next level, and what did that process and transition look like? I think that's an okay question. I think you need to be careful about going too much further than that, because in your first 12 months, in your first 18 months, potentially in your first 24 months, your core focus, you should join a company that you can grow at, but your core focus needs to be becoming the best SDR that you possibly can be and pouring yourself into that job. If the company is unhealthy and not going to be around in 6 months, like you want to, you need to figure, you need to figure that out. But if you focus on being a great SDR and finding a great leader, then, the rest will come for sure.
I love that. Culture, leadership, and growth is right in line with what we talk about. And you made a great point there that I want to just call out. It's like sometimes we lose kids, sometimes to really big, well-known companies, and they say, well, I just think the structure is going to be better for me. And I say the same thing to you. I'm like, macro structure and micro structure are very different. You can, and I always say there's big company, small company, one is not better. They're both just very different. It comes down to that leadership in the organization that you're going to be in. And you said it perfectly. Like it's not about big versus small. It's about how is that leader going to approach growth and like training and development and coaching. Yep. That's the difference. Yep. Great advice. All right. Now you've gone from individual contributor to leadership now, and you train new reps a lot. World has changed, especially in your business, a lot. What are the pillars? If you got a kid and you're setting up their first 6 months in the career, how are you training new reps? Like, what are the pillars of the Matt Barr onboarding playbook for you?
Yeah, good question. I think the first thing we're always talking about is we want to make sure they understand and get familiar with what it means to be a great salesperson and a great teammate at Breezeway. And, we have our kind of team DNA listed out, and it's a lot of intangible characteristics. And we want that to kind of set the scene with how they approach their work every single day. And we continue to talk about that through their first 6 months. And, obviously hopefully you're bringing in people with those intangibles, and it's really just pouring gasoline on that fire. But then I think from there, from a sales acumen perspective and developing sales skills, we always start with understanding our client base before we even look at the product. We don't even look at the product until week 2. Week 1 is we're gonna sit down for hours, and we're gonna understand who are our client base. Why the heck do they spend money on Breezeway? What are they doing prior to Breezeway? And what are the impacts of that on their business? And how do we feel like Breezeway solves those? And like, that's what sales is getting really, really good at understanding those things. And then you can layer on, becoming an expert in your product and the features and the functionality and being able to speak to different use cases. But we want to really understand our clients and how to uncover those things, right? So how to ask really deep questions, not just what are you using for an operations tool? Like that's a process question. You need to go 3 levels deeper and get to impact and understand how that process affects their business. So we want to make sure they understand, the DNA piece, and then we really just focus on understanding who our clients are and the challenges they face in a weekly basis.
I'm just saying a note here for Austin to clip that piece because every freaking sales leader in the country needs to hear what you just said. Starts with the customer, dude. That is awesome.
Yeah.
It actually, you start with the culture, right? Like, hey guys, this is our culture. And for me, culture, and it sounds like Coach Lawson drilled this into your head too. Culture is values, expectations, and standards. That's culture. This is the values of our team. These are our standards and these are our expectations. And you need to have these things to be able to accomplish that. So love that. But then when you get into like beyond those like softer skills and you're talking about like how they're going to do their job, no mention of the product. Let's learn about the customer.
Absolutely.
I love that, dude. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Have you guys done anything like creative there to help them understand how those people are spending their time and what's keeping them up at night?
Yeah, I mean, we have we use Gong. We do a ton of call recording and coaching, and we have snippets, not of Breezeway salespeople, but of, clients and prospects talking through their process and the challenges and their day to day. And we have a lot of former property managers, our ICP, our property managers at the company. So we actually do like day in the life sessions with some of our teammates that used to be property managers.
So
and that's all that stuff. All that stuff happens in the first 2 weeks. That's what we're focused on.
Unreal. I want everybody to hear this. I've taken jobs myself, and my friends in the audience will know this, but like you had to know the product demo with it in order to get on the phone. So like you'd spend the first week like learning how the product works and where buttons are and like what should I say when I show this part of the product. And looking back at that now, I'm like, why the hell did they do that? Why were we not like, instead of before we show like what our product does, let's show them how the world works. And we sold to IT operations. Let's show them how IT operations looks without us and why it's broken and what keeps them up at night. That's such good advice, man.
Especially as an SDR.
Yeah.
You need to be able to speak their language. You need to understand what they care about. And all you're doing is piquing interest. Once they're interested in what the product and the features and functionality, like your job is done.
You get meetings because you're credible. You get credible because you understand them. And it starts at the persona level. And then I'm sure like you're thinking about like company size. You're thinking about, all right, let's look up this specific company, any news articles, anything that they're talking about publicly. But you can't even press that in the Google machine until you understand the persona that you're talking about first, because that's going to help guide the research that you're going to do that's relevant to that persona. It's perfect. Oh man, I love it. Matt, this has been awesome. I have one more question for you. It's a question we ask. Actually, before I do that, let me ask you a question. You're now into your career, been separated from basketball for a while. Tell me why you love sales. Just tell me like what do you love about this profession, this career that you've chosen?
Yeah, I think it's what we talked about around. It's the one profession where what you put into it has the biggest impact on what you get out of it. So if you are able to show up every single day with the same energy, attitude, effort, and you can put a ton of effort into self-development and use all the resources at your hand, like you're going to get a ton out of this profession. And that's what I love. I want the effort, my efforts, my input, to be what I get out of a career. And that's what I tell people all the time. So that's why I love it, man.
Nobody cares. Work harder.
Nice.
I love it. That's why
Nice.
that's literally why I have that
Nice.
behind me. That's awesome. Great answer, dude. All right. Last piece. People always ask me, JR, why do you focus on athletes and veterans? And my answer is always the same. I say, because I don't need to explain to these type of people what it means to be dialed in. And I'm sure you can agree with me when you look back, you think about the best sales reps you've worked with, that have worked for you. That's a word you would describe. You would say, oh, she's dialed in. He's dialed in. What does that mean to you as in sales? What does it mean when somebody is dialed in?
Yeah, I love it. I think there's a lot on the sales acumen side of things that we could talk about when it comes to being dialed in, really dialing in your discovery abilities and getting good at negotiation and fine-tuning messaging. But when I think about reps that are dialed in, it probably comes back to two intangible characteristics or concepts, really. And the first one is everyday ability. So concept of everyday ability is bringing the same energy, focus, attitude to not only every day that you show up, but to every single thing that you do, every interaction that you have in a given day. And I think this is something that was really instilled in me at Bentley. If you can't tell from Coach Lawson and some of the stuff he was doing, but are you great 4 out of 5 days a week? Are you great 19 out of 20 working days in a month, or are you truly great every single day? And to me, the reps that are dialed in do it every day, and how that transitions to software sales. We're an SMB sale. You could have 4 to 5 demos in a given day. Is that fourth or fifth demo getting the same energy as the first? Are you doing the same meeting prep for that fourth or fifth demo as you were for the first? Are you doing the same follow-up? Are your notes as good in HubSpot or in Salesforce? And it really comes down to truly caring about every detail and then having the discipline to do that over and over again. So the reps that do that, I'm like, all right, this guy or gal, they are dialed in.
I love it. That's awesome, man. Everyday ability. That is fun. Is that a Coach Lawson ism?
That is a Coach Lawson-ism for sure.
I love that. I love that. That might be the title of the episode right there, buddy.
Yeah, and I would say the other concept is internal versus external. So I think we're looking for everyday ability, and then we're looking for the people that are dialed in have a mindset of internal versus external. What I mean by that is if a close rate is off, or you missed a revenue target, are you someone that says, well, the market conditions are rough, or product hasn't released the feature they were talking about, or JR got more inbounds than me, he got 5, I got 2. Or are you someone that instead of looking externally, looks internally and says, all right, inbounds are down. Like, what am I doing to drive outbound pipeline? Where's my activity at? Where's my, what does my messaging look like? How am I setting my SDR up for success? And the reps that look internally versus externally, you can see it after a month where, maybe they missed their number. That one-on-one sheet is filled out with all the stuff that they're going to try and do to hit goal this month. And it's like dialed in.
The excuse department is closed. Nobody cares. Yeah. Work harder. That's dialed in, man.
Yep.
Man, the everyday interaction in by the everyday ability in my head, I'm thinking of like a personal plus minus thing.
100%.
You know what I mean? That's it. Like that's what you personified that into a sales profession, and it's a perfect match. I love that.
Yeah.
So good.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. That's what the money's for, Matt.
Yeah.
Dude, this was an awesome episode, Matt. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Love what you guys do. So keep it up. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This wraps up this episode of Merchants of Change.
If you enjoyed this episode, the most meaningful way to say thanks is to submit a review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're interested in working with us, please come find us at www.shiftgroup.io.